There is one number that appears almost every time people talk about financial security: save 6 months of living expenses, and you should be fine. That advice has been repeated for so many years that many people rarely stop to question whether it still fits today's world. Now imagine waking up tomorrow to a layoff while living costs keep climbing and the job search takes much longer than expected. The balance in your account suddenly feels much smaller. Not because your math was wrong, but because the world moved faster than your financial plan. The problem is not emergency savings themselves, but the fact that many financial systems were designed for a world that no longer exists. Today's economy moves faster, work feels less predictable, prices shift within months, yet many definitions of financial safety have barely changed in decades. At the margin, we see financial security as the strength of a system that can remain standing when life becomes less predictable. Today we are asking whether 6 months of savings is still enough, and what it really means for a financial system to adapt when conditions keep changing. There is something interesting about how the human brain measures money, because we naturally judge financial safety by the numbers we can see. As the balance in a bank account grows, anxiety often becomes quieter. Even though the same amount may not carry the same value years later. Inflation rarely takes money all at once because it slowly reduces what that money can buy until familiar expenses no longer fit the same budget. A bank account never tells you that your purchasing power is shrinking because the balance stays the same while its protection quietly weakens. Financial safety is not only about how much money you have, but also about how long that money can support your current standard of living. The biggest illusion in personal finance may be trusting visible numbers instead of testing whether a financial system could handle a period of crisis. Imagine two people with identical emergency savings, while one lives alone with stable work and the other supports a family while facing greater job risk. On paper, their account balances look identical, yet the level of financial risk surrounding each person is very different. Financial safety can never be measured by a single number because it always depends on the circumstances surrounding your life. Perhaps the more useful question is no longer about the size of an emergency fund, but about how resilient a financial system remains when conditions change. 6 months of emergency savings was never a bad rule, and for its time it made practical sense. When jobs were more stable and living costs changed more slowly, several months of savings could cover most temporary risks. Modern economies work differently because disruptions often arrive together instead of one at a time. Someone can lose a job while living costs rise, investment values fall, and new opportunities become harder to find at the same time. Financial crises no longer appear as isolated events but as connected pressures that reinforce one another. Technology is also changing many careers much faster than it did before, sometimes within only a few months. Having cash alone does not always mean someone is prepared because modern crises also test the ability to adapt over time. Traditional financial advice is not necessarily wrong, but it was created for a different economic environment. We are no longer living in the same economy as previous generations, so the surrounding financial landscape has changed as well. The next section introduces a broader financial protection framework designed around today's economic uncertainty instead of only emergency savings. If you were building a house in a flood-prone area, you would not rely on a single wall because every type of risk behaves differently. Personal finances may work better as several layers with different purposes instead of one emergency fund for every situation. I think of this framework as the 3-layer safety net, where financial security is viewed as a system rather than a bank balance. The first layer is instant cash, which represents money that is available to use today within minutes if needed. This layer is meant for unexpected expenses like a flat tire, a broken washing machine, or medical costs that cannot wait. The second layer is liquid stability, where funds remain accessible while offering a better chance of preserving value over time. The purpose is not to chase high returns, but to reduce how inflation gradually erodes purchasing power over the long term. The third layer is often overlooked, not because it lacks importance, but because it is rarely part of everyday financial conversations. I call this final layer financial flexibility because it creates room to adapt when the world changes faster than expected. When these three layers work together, they function as a system designed to respond to different kinds of financial disruption instead of only one scenario. Many people feel more comfortable keeping cash sitting in a bank account because the human brain naturally prefers things that appear certain, even when they are not always the strongest choice. A bank balance creates a feeling of control because it is always available to check, and the number itself often feels reassuring. The problem is that feeling calm does not necessarily mean the financial system behind that feeling has become any stronger. Imagine someone with substantial savings while every dollar of income still depends on a single job that could disappear after a layoff. Someone else may have a smaller savings balance while relying on several income sources, adaptable skills, and far more flexible spending. Which person is actually more financially secure may not match the size of the balance shown in their bank account. Financial security is often shaped by both the assets people own and the abilities they can continue using over time. Some people recover from losing a job more quickly because they have more than one way to keep moving forward during difficult periods. Real security is not about preventing every change, but about avoiding a situation where one change disrupts the entire financial system. The sooner that distinction becomes clear, the fewer financial decisions are driven by fear instead of preparedness. Decades ago, many people spent their entire careers at one company, but today even a single industry can change dramatically within just a few years. Technology, automation, and artificial intelligence continue reshaping hiring, making job stability feel less permanent than it once did. The pandemic also showed that modern crises often arrive before people have time to prepare for them. Within weeks, millions saw their income shrink, revealing how much they depended on a single source of financial security. That is why I see an emergency fund as the starting point rather than the finish line of financial security. Another layer of protection can come from learning new skills or earning income from more than one source. A strong professional network is also part of financial security because opportunities often travel through relationships before applications. As the definition of assets expands, wealth also includes anything that strengthens your ability to endure difficult periods. The people most prepared for the future are not necessarily the ones predicting the next crisis, but the ones building systems that can adapt to different risks. In the final part, these ideas come together around a single principle that redefines what financial security is meant to protect. We often ask how much emergency savings we should have, but a different question asks what happens after that money runs out. Every savings balance has a limit, while a well-designed system can simply create more time before difficult decisions arrive. Financial pressure often pushes people to sell valuable assets during market declines because they have no other option available. Liquidity is not only about holding cash because it also represents the ability to buy time when life becomes difficult. The more time people have, the less likely they are to make financial decisions driven by panic during volatility. The purpose of a layered safety system is not to remove crises, but to keep smaller problems from becoming much larger ones. Many people chase a specific savings number because they want security, even while wondering whether their system would continue working if plans failed. Financial security does not remove every risk because risk can still exist without affecting every part of life equally. As that perspective changes, saving money begins to look less like collecting cash and more like building resilience over a longer time horizon. Money is simply a tool that can create enough space to keep thinking clearly when everything else feels chaotic. One of the biggest misunderstandings in personal finance is believing that a larger bank balance automatically means a safer life. History has shown that even high earners can face financial trouble when their entire system depends on a single source of income. Others may own far less wealth while keeping spending under control, learning continuously, and relying on several income streams. That may be the kind of wealth people rarely notice because it is measured by calmness when circumstances begin to change. The modern economy keeps changing as technology evolves, industries shift, and living costs continue moving over time. Those changes cannot all be controlled, even though the system around them can still be prepared differently. The purpose of financial planning is not to predict the future before it happens. People who seem genuinely calm are not always talking about money every day because their attention often stays elsewhere. Financial security may be measured less by a bank balance than by staying steady when uncertainty appears. Wealth is often associated with buying more, yet it can also be viewed through the ability to keep making choices when options become fewer. After watching this video, you may not need to increase your emergency savings right away, but it may be worth asking whether your financial system is actually prepared for a world that keeps changing. Look at how you store your money today and ask whether everything depends on a single account or already has several layers of protection. In the modern economy, financial security is shaped less by one big decision and more by many small decisions repeated consistently over time. No financial system can remove every source of risk, although some systems leave people better prepared when uncertainty eventually arrives. Perhaps the real purpose of financial freedom is having enough room to face unexpected problems without immediately losing control. If you enjoy discussions like this, consider subscribing to The Margin, where the focus stays on understanding financial systems instead of chasing quick-rich narratives. If your primary income stopped today, which part of your financial system would feel strongest, and which part would feel the most vulnerable? Share your answer in the comments because recognizing the weakest part of a financial system today can change how people respond when difficult times eventually arrive.